So hey everyone, in this video we are going to start with the add property page, okay, by listing the form items, okay, and then we are going to list a property on our website using that form, okay. So in the last video we had created this add page with a generic name of add property, and we had restricted this route only to logged in users, okay. So in this video we are just going to list out the different form elements, and then we are going to create a server action to receive all the form inputs, and then upload the property to our database, okay, along with the logged in user. And after that we will be testing if the record is actually being uploaded in our database or not, okay. So let's get started by giving this div a class name of form container like this, and then inside this I'm just going to replace this add property with our h1 tag and giving it the name of list your property, okay. So I forgot to turn off this, okay. So let's give a h1 of class name heading, and then call it list your property, okay. So after that we are going to give a paragraph tag just to give it a little description of this page. Like we can just say give it a class name of paragraph, and then give a margin bottom of 1, okay, and then text center, okay. And once this is done, forgot to give a dot here, okay. So once this is done, we just need to render out a text, okay. So all of this will be just rendering out plain JSX, okay, and then listing out on the screen. So if you wish, you can also copy paste this code, and then you can just directly jump into the server actions. And if you would like to continue and follow along with me, you can just go ahead. So I just don't want to bore much of y'all over here, okay. So let's this should be paragraph, and let's give the text of list your property for free, and reach out to our potential buyers and sellers. Okay, so this is just some random text. You can just feel free to replace this off by your own, okay. And once this is done, we can just now jump on to the design form element, okay. So you know how to import design form, right? So you can just import the form tag. So this will be the wrapper for our entire form, okay. So inside that we are just going to list out form elements, okay. So if you remember that from our previous videos, and with this form we are just going to give it some props like on finish, okay. So when you click on submit, so it should call a particular function, okay. And this first parameter that we get within this on finish function will be all of our received values, okay. So for now I can just take in the values, and then console log the values, okay, just to show if what are we actually getting or not, okay. So inside this form element we are just going to use the design card, okay. So we are just displaying all the form elements in the form of a card. So let's import card. So inside this card, let us use our first form item. So we write that in form.item, and inside this let's give a label of type, okay. And then I'm going to give it a name of type again. So this will be a lowercase type, okay. So we, based on this name, we get all the values, okay, whatever the name we assign to that. So be careful to writing the names within our form element, and this name should actually match with the type with the name that you defined within your while creating your schema, right? So I've just called this type, so that is why I'm also writing here type, okay. So you just need to be careful with that. And then this is going to be having a label call. So this means that how much the label should span and how much the input element should span, okay. So we basically this is also divided into 24. So we want the label column to span like six slices, and then the rest we just want to give for the input element, okay. So this should be span and give it 6, okay. And then we have the rules, okay. So this rules is basically like required, okay. So required by giving some message, okay. So this will be in the form of an array where we just need to define certain properties, like this is required. So I'm just going to set this to true, and then we need to give a appropriate message saying that please fill in your input like property type. Okay, so give it a message saying that please input the property type like this. And then once this is done, we can just close off this form element, form.item, and then we just need to render out a radio button. Okay, so in this radio button we are just going to give it two values. One is it the type, is it for rent or is it for sale? Okay, so we have already done this before, so let's anyways do this again. So radio dot group. Okay, so this will be the wrapper for our radio buttons. Okay, and we need to just give it a button style. Okay, so we have different button styles, like we have solid one, we have you see also you'll get some suggestions also here. And so this is button style, and you can just say it's solid. So I want a solid. So if you want other types also, you can just search the documentation, and inside this we are going to use the radio button. Okay, and the first thing is going to be value, which is going to be rent. Okay, so make sure whatever the value you give here, so this will actually be passed to our database, and within how you defined your schema.prisma will determine like is the exact value we are actually sending or not. Okay, so make sure you verify that. So this is going to be rent. Okay, because this is the enum value I have set over here. Okay, so that is here. Okay, so rent or sale, so I'm giving in capital letters, that's why. So that is, let's give the text of rent. Okay, and let's duplicate the same for the sale. Okay, okay, so our first form item is done. So let's now go to our browser and just check if we are actually getting the form element or not. So before we do that, let's make sure that this component is rendering only on the client side. So use client, because we are using these hooks, and also we'll be using many more things like use effect for our server actions and all that. So once that's done, let's go back to our browser and hit refresh. Yeah, there we go. So we see the type as for rent or for sale. Okay, so make sure you are logged in. So if you're not logged in, we might not be able to access this page, and we have already discussed the functionality in our last video. All right, so this is the first form item. So we can just select either we want this to be for rent or for sale. Okay, so once that's done, let's now move on to the rest of our form elements. Okay, so now let's copy this first form item and then duplicate this. Okay, and let's now change from type to the name of our property. Okay, so this will be the name that we assign for our property. Okay, and since this label call is both common for the form item, for all the form items, what I can just do is I can just cut this and then go to my my wrapper form and then assign it over there. Okay, so this will go ahead and give this label call of span 6 to all of our input elements. Okay, so we just don't need to repeat that for every form item. Okay, so I'm just going to delete this even for this, and let's now change the text of rules, the required property message to please input your property name. Okay, and once that's done, let's close our form item and then render out a input element from design. Okay, so this will just be a plain input. So let's import that input. Okay, so this will be a self-closing tag, and once I save this and go back, you should be able to see a input tag. Okay, so I need to refresh. Okay, so this is coming outside the card. I guess I need to put this inside that. Okay, so once that's done, you see that it's taking a lot of space, right? So that's why I just wanted to give this a special prop of wrapper call. Okay, so this will basically take in the span number, which will take in the amount of space that we need for this input element. Okay, so for that, since we have already added this label call of span 6, so we can just give the same another one for wrapper call. Okay, so this is going to take in let's say span of 16 or 14. Okay, so once this is done, we can, after we save, you see that the size of the input element has now reduced. Okay, so this is looking more compact and more readable. Okay, so once this is done, let's now move on to the rest of our form elements. Okay, so now let's go back and let's duplicate this form item and do the same for the description. Okay, so for the description we do not need to provide a required attribute. Okay, so description is completely optional. Okay, so let's get rid of this and then replace the label to description and also the name. Alright, and inside this form element we can give a input.text area. Okay, so this will be a text area, so that will be inside this input element. Okay, so that is from text area, and once you save that, we go back, we should be able to see a text area over here. Okay, so once that's done, let's now move on to the address, that is street, city, zip code and the state. Okay, so let us again duplicate one of these and use it over here. So let us rename this to street. Okay, and this is going to say please input your property street. Okay, so this is also still going to render a input element. Okay, so let's now duplicate the same for the city, state and our zip code. Okay, so let's copy this few more times and let's change the text from street to street to city, and over here, and then we have the state. Okay, so I'm hitting Ctrl D and replacing this to state, and then finally is a zip code. Okay, so let us duplicate this one more time and change this to zip code. Alright, so with that saved, we can just go back and see. Yeah, there we go. So we have the street, city, state and the zip code. Okay, so the address for our property is done. So now let's move on to the price. Okay, so let us duplicate this once again and then change this to price. Okay, so this time it's not going to be an input, but it's going to be an input number. Okay, so input number also we need to import from AND. So once that's done, we just need to if you just go back, you just see some small change. Okay, so if I refresh this and did I change the thing to price? Yeah, for some reason it got too late. So we see that we get arrows, okay, to increment or decrement. Okay, so this is going to be input number, and then we just need to add on a few things, okay, after this. So that is add on before and after. Okay, so we have two properties for that. So if we want to add on something before, okay, so that is the rupee symbol. Okay, so we can just use the simple text of rs, that is for stands for rupees, and we can just by default it is just like around 50 pixel wide. Okay, so you see that we have given a add-on before that of the text rs, which stands for rupees. Okay, so there's another prop of add-on after that will come at the end of this. Okay, so that's the thing which I wanted to say, and then finally let's move on to the rest of the form items. So next is we are going to render out the bedroom, halls and kitchens. Okay, so this is also like going to be a radio button, so I can just copy one of the instances that we created using a radio button. Then let's go at the bottom and use this. Okay, I'm going to change the name of this to be BHK. Okay, so make sure that there is no typo in here. Alright, so also here, and once that's done, we can render out this BHK. So the first one is going to be 1 BHK and then 2 BHK and following till 4 BHK. Okay, so I have just updated those values to 1 RK, 1 room kitchen, 1 BHK and going up to 4 BHK. Okay, so make sure your value match to the values that you define within your the schema. Okay, these values. Alright, so that's done. So if you just go back and we see the BHKs over here. Okay, so let's now move on to the area. So the area is also going to be an input number, so we can just copy one of these. Okay, and then change this from add on before to add on after. Okay, so by giving that, we are saying that this is going to be square feet instead of rupees. Okay, so Okay, so the number which we give it followed by the square feet. Okay, so let's change this to area. Okay, so now if we just go back, you see that the square feet is at the last. Okay, because we are given add on after. Okay, so whatever we type in here will be the square feet. Okay, and then let's give the parking. Okay, so let's copy the one of the radio buttons that we defined. So that is just going to be a yes no value. All right, so let's paste in here and then replace this like parking. Okay, so let's change the values to yes or no. Okay, so once that's done, let's now move on to the preferred tenants. Okay, so again this is going to be a radio button, so let's duplicate this and change this to preferred tenants. Okay, so let's give the value of family and then the second one as bachelors. Okay, so it's just bachelor. Okay, so let's check if what have we actually defined. So it is bachelors. Okay, so make sure you verify with those. So this should be family, and let's also change the text of these. So we have the radio button for parking as well as the preferred tenants. All right, so let's now move on to the property type, whether it's apartment or independent. Again, let's duplicate this and change this to property type and the value, sorry, the name. All right, so let's change this to apartment and then the independent house. Okay, so it is just independent, I guess. Yeah, it's just independent. And also let's change the text of this. All right, so that's done. And so the last form item is going to be available from. Okay, so when is this property available from? Okay, only then do we show that property on it. Okay, so let's also duplicate one of these, and this is going to be a date field. Okay, so we can just pick in a certain date for to make the property available. So when is the property available actually? So we can just change this to available from. Okay, so and this is the name is going to be available from. All right, so once that's done, so all of our input elements are okay. So I just forgot to render out our date picker, so that is also coming from and design. Okay, so date picker. All right, so we can just close this up, and once we save this, we should be able to have a date picker. Okay, so let us, for some reason my laptop is a little slow, I don't know why. You see the date picker over here. Okay, so we can just choose whichever month we want to make this property available from. Okay, whichever date, exact date, so that date will be over here. Also we can clear this. Okay, and also you see that we get the required text. Okay, so please input the available from. Okay, so it's the same for everything except the description. Okay, which is optional. So if I just type in something and go back, it will say to please input the property name. Okay, so I hope that is clear. So now let's move to the button where we can submit the form, and also a button to reset all the form fields. So let's give a space here of from Andy. Okay, so this was like a virtual flex box. Okay, so this will place an element side by side, and if you want it to be vertical also, you can just pass in a prop of vertical. So by default it is going to be horizontal. Okay, so button, and let's give a type of primary and HTML type of submit, and inside this button we are going to say submit. Okay, so then finally we are going to use another button to reset. Okay, but reset is not going to be of type primary. Okay, and also this is not going to be of type submit. Okay, so we are just going to put a on click handler once we create the form instance, and then we have a property called reset field. Okay, so we are just coming to that. So once we save this, we should be able to see our two buttons to submit the form and reset. Okay, so there we go. So submit and reset. So once that's done, we can now work on our server actions. Okay, so I just wanted to fill out this form and show you, are we exactly getting the values or not. So now let's select the property type and let's give the name of, let's say, test. Give it some test description. Okay, and then the street, city, state, and then the zip code, then the price. Okay, so whether it's how many BHK, the area, parking, preferred tenants, property type, and available from. Okay, so once I click on submit, I should be able to see the console. We should be able to see the values in our console. Okay, because we have applied a console log within the form element over here. Okay, we are just for now logging all the values. Okay, so if I open my console, yeah, there we go. I guess it's from here. No, this is actually from the Google OAuth. So once I submit this form, let's try again. Yeah, there we go. So now we are getting all the different values. Okay, we have defined 14 different form elements, so we are getting all of them. Okay, so make sure you verify before you start doing your server actions. Okay, so once I'm getting this, so now let's go ahead and start building a server action, so that we can send in all of these form input elements to our database and then create a property. Okay, so now let us go to the actions file, and over there we have defined all of our server actions, right? So let us create another function to post a property. Okay, so let us use a function. Let's call this post property, and this is going to receive the property and as well as the user. Okay, so which user has created the property. Okay, so that also will be sending from the client side. Okay, so let us use the data which is of type property. Okay, so the type we just need to import from Prisma. Okay, so then we have is the user ID. Okay, so which will be a string. All right, so once this is done, we can write in the body of our function. Okay, so now let's open our try catch to handle promise. Okay, and then let's create a variable to get the response and set this equal to await, that is db dot property dot create. Okay, so this is going to create a property within our database by certain values. Okay, so we just need to pass in the data object, and inside that we are just going to spread across whatever the data we have. Okay, and along with the user ID. So let's use a spread operator and then the data that we are receiving as arguments, and then we pass in the owner ID. Okay, so owner ID, and then we are giving the user ID. Okay, and since this will be in the form of a string, we can just convert this to a number by adding a plus sign over there. Okay, so let's make this function async. So once that's done, if there is any error, we can just catch that. Okay, so first I'm just going to console log the error, like we can say error creating property, and then pass in the error. All right, and then finally we throw the error. Okay, so we just want to terminate the process, right? So throw error. All right, so once that's done, we can just export this post property. One last thing, let's return the response. Okay, alright, so our server action for posting a property is done. So we just need to link it up to our form. Whenever we submit this form, we call this function of post property and then pass in our the form elements within this data object. Okay, so now we can get rid of this console log and instead call a function called on finish. Okay, so now let's create that function at the top. So const on finish, and this is going to be an async function, so that is going to take in all the values first. Okay, so the values that we just console logged, right? So all of the values, and inside this we are just going to create an object called response and set this equal to await, that is the post property. So let's auto import that, and we just need to call the function and pass in the values like so. Okay, so that is values, and then we also need the user ID, right? So how do we get the logged in user's ID? Remember in the last video I told you that we get within the session object, okay, by using the use session hook from Next.js, right? So let's use that hook right at the top. So const let's call this so we just need to destructure the data that we are getting from the use session hook. So let's rename that to session, and set this equal to use session. So that is coming from next./react. Okay, and we need to call this, and we get the remember we have defined the user object inside this. Okay, so we have the session.user.id. okay, so in one of those videos we have assigned the id inside this session object, so we are just going to pass in that id, so the database id itself. Okay, so let's pass in the session dot user dot id. Okay, so for some reason it says that id doesn't exist on this type. Okay, so let's anyways console log this session and see if we are getting the id or not. Okay, so before we check that, let's finish this off. Okay, so let's log the response to the console, and I forgot to write this inside a try catch. Okay, so within the try block let's put in these two lines of code, and within the catch we can just copy one of these. Okay, so that's done. So we just also need to define the type for these values. Okay, so again that is going to be coming from property. Okay, so let's give the type of property, so that is coming from prisma/client. So once that's done, we can now go ahead and test this out. So I have filled in all the form elements, and now if I hit submit, I should be able to see something like property created. Okay, so maybe I misspelled this particular attribute called preferred tenants. So let us go back and let's check that out. Okay, so preferred tenants, so this should be actually camel case. Okay, so sorry for that. And now if we just try it once again, so now if I click on submit, it says that property type is missing again. I guess I forgot to give it a camel case, so let us go back and fix this quickly. So property type, I guess it's right here. Yeah, okay, so let's now finally test this out. So everything is done. So if I click on submit now, and okay, property type, hit submit. Yeah, I guess our property is now created because we are getting the response of all these values that we are inserted to our database. Okay, so only thing is we just need to show a message over here like property is successfully created, and navigate the user back to the property page. Okay, so let us check that out if we have actually created a record in our database. So now I have logged into my MySQL workbench, and there I see the property successfully created in our database. Okay, by the name test, which I actually defined, and yeah, so everything is working nice and fine. Only thing is we just need to upload the property images. Okay, and also you see that this is the if I just wanted to show you the logged in user who actually created this property. Okay, so it's over here, so the owner id. Okay, so it's giving us 11. Okay, so if I just go to the users table and just see that who's the owner of this. Okay, so this is the exact email id which I actually logged into. Okay, so I just use this email id to log in, which with the id of 11. So that is what the id of the property who created this is actually saved. Okay, so this is actually like a relation which is between the user and the property table. Okay, So that's it for this video, guys. So in the next video we will be working on the uploading images to our database with the Cloudinary URL, and also we'll be setting up Cloudinary to upload our images to that and retrieve a URL which we can use within our project. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.